Sometimes in life we learn some valuable life lessons, but at the moment they're just information. And I'm gonna tell you guys a story that is a really interesting story, but it's really a really interesting life lesson. Now, to start this story, I'm gonna start from the beginning. What happened is I had some money saved up, and I called my dad. He had previously had some watch repair shops before, and I wanted to make something bigger and nicer and an actual store where we could sell watches and have a nice shop. So I called him up. I asked him, Dad, I got some money saved up, and I'm ready to open up a shop, a store. If you're interested, I mean, I'll put the money and we'll do it. And of course, he was really interested. He said, yeah, well, let's do it. So life happened, and I invested all the money I had at that moment in building the store and the shop. And my dad put all the materials, so the watch repair materials and stuff like that. And I bought a whole bunch of watches. And life happened, and he wasn't able to help me. So now all of a sudden I had a store, but my dad wasn't there. So I had to stay in the store. My wife was helping me, but I had to stay there in the shop to do the repairs and to try and make this business work. But I was in a really bad situation because now I couldn't generate money. Back then I was a concrete contractor, and I couldn't do that anymore because I had all my investments in this store, and now I had to make this thing work. And I was going through a really hard time at that moment, and I didn't know what to do. And I just told my wife, you know what, we're just going to close the store. I told her, we're going to cut our losses and just close the store, and that's all we can do. We're going to wait a few days and then close it down. But I had made up my mind I was going to close the store. So that same day, this gentleman walked in. And he was, I believe either he was 91 or 96. He did tell me his age, but I forget how old he was at that moment. And this is quite a bit of years ago, so I don't know where he's at right now. Hopefully he's okay. So he walks in the store, and I had invested some money in watches, so I had a couple of Rolexes, Omegas, and some decent watches, and he walked in there, and the watch he gravitated towards, the one he loved, was a Raymond wheel, a quartz Raymond wheel. And most of us that are watch collectors and like watches, we really don't think about those watches. They're not too valuable for us. We see them and they're nice, but we're not interested in them. So he goes in the store, and he looks at the watches, and he saw the Raymond wheel, and his eyes got really big, and he really liked it. And it was to me, it was like just a normal quartz watch. So he asked me, can I see that watch? I said, yeah, sure. So I took the watch out of the case and I handed it to him. And I can still remember him. He got that watch. He was looking at that watch like it was a really precious diamond. I mean, you could see what he was looking at. He was loving it. I almost felt like asking him, you know what? Let me have that watch back, because he was giving that watch a lot of value just the way he was looking at it, holding it. He put it on his wrist, look at the mirror, and then take it off, look at it again. And he was just enamored with that watch. I could just see it in his face, his actions. I could see he really, really loved that watch. And that's a really interesting lesson. At that point, it was just information. But at that moment, now I can see it after years have passed by. The value that he gave his watch, the way he was wearing his watch, the value that he gave his watch, or that watch wasn't his watch at the moment, but the value that he gave this watch is just amazing, because now I even wanted the watch now. I mean, the watch just looked amazing. This guy was in his 90s, so he was not a kid. He was somebody that's been around. He obviously, he really liked that watch. He was really interested in it. And then, after we talking about the watch a little bit, he told me, you know what, I got to be honest with you. He said, I really can't afford it. He said, I really want it, but I can't afford it. Of course, I know what you guys are thinking, and I was thinking the same thing, and he knew what I was thinking. I was thinking, you can't afford it, why buy it? And that's where the second really valuable life lesson came in from him. At that moment, like I said, it was just information. Now it's a life lesson. It's something that I'll never forget. He said, listen, you look at an old man. He said, I'm in my 90s. I'm an old man. You're thinking, why are you going to buy a watch that you can't afford? You're an old man. He said, you look at an old man, but I look at a person. I have a body that I still love. He had all kinds of rings on and bracelets and necklaces and all kinds of stuff. What he thought was cool, and I thought he was cool too, because just the way he was dressed, I mean, I could tell he cared about himself. He still loved himself. He said, you see an old man, but I see a body that I still love. And I want that watch. He said, of course, at this moment, this is just information to me. This is not a life lesson at that moment. I had really, really major things going on in my life. I'm in debt now and just having problems all over. And this guy's giving me his story, but I don't care. Well, I didn't care at that moment, but I kind of liked the guy. I really, really liked him. To me, that Raymond wheel was just a regular watch. I'll go over this watch right now in a minute. This is just a fill-in watch. I'll go over this watch in a minute. So he tells me, you know what? I can't afford it. I just get a pension. And he says, can you do layaway? Of course, there's two things going in my mind. I'm ready to close the store, so I can't do layaway because I won't be here next month. And I don't know if this guy's going to outlive the payment plan. But I'm thinking, I'm watching him with the watch, and I'm thinking, it was like $200, and he had $20 to put it on layaway, 10%. And I'm thinking, I'll take the $20 and he can have the watch. Basically giving it to him because $20 wasn't even what I had paid. I had paid much more for that watch. But he really liked it, and I thought, well, he can have it. I mean, what am I going to do with it? I got to close this place, sell it online or somewhere, and so he can have it. So I told him, you know what? Yeah, I'll put it on layaway. He said, I told him, give me 20%, $20, and actually I told him you can take it with you. And jokingly, I told him, I don't think you're going to leave town. Of course, he was in the 90s. He was still driving, but I knew he was not going to skip out on just because he couldn't pay a watch. Of course, I wasn't really worried about the watch because I was ready to close. So I gave him the watch, and he got his eyes really watery and teary. He couldn't believe it. He said, you would just let me take that watch? I don't think you're going anywhere. I told him, so yeah, go ahead. He couldn't believe it that I didn't know him. I had never met him. To take the watch. Of course, I knew that I was going to close the store, so I wasn't worried about the watch. I had really, really major things going on in my life at that moment. So he left, and this was our last week or two of the store, and that's it. I was done with it. Interestingly enough, though, the next day, when I pull up to the store to open it, there's 3 people in line, which is weird because usually I only get 3 people in a day. I mean, this store was doing really, really, really bad. I mean, I had no money to do any promotions. Back then, Facebook and YouTube weren't such a big thing, so I didn't know how to do any kind of promotion. I couldn't afford it. So having 3 people in line was really interesting that morning. And I got in there and I opened the door, and there's these 3 people had a few watches each, 2 or 3 watches each. So right away, I was, making some money, changing watch batteries. And all day, I kept on having people come in the store. I probably had about 20 people that day, which was really, really weird for a store that only had solid 2 or 3 people a day. So I did ask one of the guys, I asked him, what's going on? I said, well, how'd you guys hear about us? I thought it was weird. And he said, oh, yeah, you sold the watch to, I forget the gentleman's name. You sold the watch to so-and-so, and he told us about it. He said, there's a group of us that said that they used to set a fast food restaurant, drink coffee in the mornings, in the evenings. And they used to hang out there, and he told them about the watch. He told them about the store. He told them that I had watch batteries, and I was a really nice person, Needless to say, after that day, these people that came in, of course, they told all their relatives, and I started having good business. That store, that watch repair shop, stayed open for a long while, because of that. So it's a really interesting story. It's really a watch story, but it's more of a life lesson. It's something that I'll never forget. There's three really valuable lessons in this. Number one is he gave his watch value. The watch to me didn't have any value. You know, we if you're watching this video, you're probably like watches. You want to see a Rolex and you want to see a Breitling and a Patek, and this guy just had a Raymond wheel. But the way he was holding it, the value that he gave that watch, it's just amazing because he was holding like as $1 million watch. Now, let me mention this watch. This is just a Bolova 96B107. Of course, it's a rectangular watch. It's a really nice watch. I know this watch. I know that I know the movement it's got. I know it's not a fine watch. It's nothing spectacular. But I think I give the watch the value when I wear it. And I'll tell you guys something too. This watch actually gets a lot of compliments when I wear it. I have a lot of watches. This is one. I'll say that this is probably the watch that gets the most compliments when I wear it. People say, "Oh, that's a really nice watch. It's a thin watch. It's a rectangular watch. It's pretty elegant." We all know it's not a really expensive watch, but it does get a lot of compliments. So I learned that you give your watch the value that you want. It's watch values are not so much the money, the price, the brand, anything, the rarity. It's what you give it. You give it. You make it cool. You make it a good watch. You make it a fine watch because that's what it is to you. That's number one. Number two that I learned from this guy is he told me, you see an old man, but I see a body that I still love. Like I said before, that back then was just information. It wasn't a life lesson. Only after years have passed have I understood that was actually a life lesson. Today, I don't mind wearing bracelets or men's stuff, and because this is my body and I still love myself. And he didn't care what anybody thought. He had a whole bunch of rings and necklaces and stuff. He never cared, but he made the things that he was wearing, he actually made him look cool. Even in his 90s. Still, I think he was a really, really cool looking gentleman. That's number two. Number three that I learned that day is that sometimes a good deed can go a long way. Honestly, I wasn't trying to do a good deed. I didn't care about the watch. But to him, it was something big, something gigantic, something that was, major in his life, that somebody just let him take a watch. And he was so grateful that he told his friends, and he probably, I can almost imagine the conversations. You know what? Go help this guy out. I can tell he's not doing good. Give him a hand. Help him out. Take your watches. Take your wife's watches. Take your kids' watches. I didn't know that little seed was gonna actually help my business. Stay in business. So those are really valuable lessons that I learned. I'll never forget him. I don't know his name, but it doesn't matter because what matters is that I remember the life lessons that I learned from him. Anyways, this was my video today, and I'll see you guys in the next video.